so much for joining me for WSAZ Plus. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shannon Litton. We are learning new information about the fatal shooting of a woman in her car by an ICE officer, and the entire incident was caught on camera. Now, the woman has been identified as a 37-year-old Renee Good. Minneapolis police say Good was blocking ICE officers with her SUV. You can see officers approach, with one going to the driver's side door and another stepping in front of the vehicle. Good then reverses before accelerating forward and to the right as an officer fires multiple shots, striking her in the head, according to officials. Her SUV careening forward before crashing into parked cars. In this reverse angle, the officer visible in front of the SUV with the driver accelerating. Now, this is one of those things that has taken the headlines by storm in the country. We were actually able to speak with Senator Rand Paul earlier this morning during our newscast over on the CW. We asked him about this shooting and, of course, about things that are going on around the country and internationally, like over in Venezuela, and how that affects policy at home and what policymakers are doing about it here at home in Washington, D.C. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say earlier this morning.
And joining us now is Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky.
We want to thank the senator for being with us this morning. And Senator, what's your reaction to what's unfolding in Minneapolis this morning?
There's malfeasance, or whether or not this was an aggression by the woman, I think will have to be determined by looking at the evidence. I hate to weigh in on one side or the other and say someone's innocent, someone's guilty, without knowing all the facts. I think it's important enough, obviously, with someone dying, that it has to be investigated, but I don't think probably appropriate for me to weigh in without knowing the facts.
You've also been a vocal critic of the U.S. military operation in Venezuela so far. I know Congress got a briefing on this week. What did you learn? What surprised you?
You know, there's probably been no greater foe of Maduro and his autocratic socialism than myself. I wrote a book called The Case Against Socialism, talking about, you know, how evil and how awful things had gotten in Venezuela. There was a shortage of food, state-sponsored violence, you name it. So I have no love lost for Maduro. I'm glad he's gone. But there is a way we go about declaring war in our country. The Constitution gave the power to Congress. And there's been long a tug-of-war between Congress and the executive over this. But our founding fathers were unanimous that war should not begin without coming to Congress. So I think bombing a nation's capital with hundreds of bombs, abducting or taking the president from that country, that is an act of war. Those who want to call it like a law enforcement operation, I think are, you know, that's a pretext, basically. Basically, they don't want to call it war, when in actuality it was the initiation of a war, a short-lived one. And if it's short-lived, I think the American people will move on, and they don't have much choice because Congress doesn't seem to want to bear this responsibility. But we've had that debate in the Senate floor, on the Senate floor this week, and I spoke out in favor of the idea that when we go to war, it should have to come through Congress first.
Now, Senator, you have on occasion spoken out against the president, but unlike some of your former colleagues and current colleagues, you haven't paid a political price for it so far. What do you chalk that up to?
Well, you know, I spoke with the president yesterday on the phone. I still have good relations with the president. I've known him personally for over a decade now, and I think he's one of the best in many ways. I mean, controlling the border, he's done an amazing job. We've had a 99% reduction. And I really think that's how you control fentanyl. The big problem, some people say, oh, we're going to Venezuela to stop fentanyl. Well, Venezuela doesn't make any fentanyl. There is absolutely no fentanyl made in Venezuela. It all comes from Mexico with some ingredients from China. But President Trump's closing the border down with Mexico has been phenomenal. And I think it's reduced the amount of fentanyl coming into our country and the number of deaths. I think we had 20,000 less deaths in last year versus the year before. So there are many things he and I agree on. We do have disagreements, and I'm not afraid to state them. But I think the president respects people who have their own opinions and aren't just simply rubber stamps or yes men. He's certainly got plenty of yes men who are afraid of him. He knows that I'll speak the truth, but I also do it sincerely and not from a malevolent intent towards him or his character.
Well, Senator Paul, we appreciate you joining us this morning. We look forward to talking with you again. Thank you.
All right, that was our conversation with Senator Rand Paul earlier this morning. You heard him talk there about what was going on in Minnesota. He says at the very least, there should be an investigation anytime there is a death. We heard him talk there about President Donald Trump's carrying that mission in Venezuela to get Nicolas Maduro out of power. And how he disagrees with that mission. And of course, he spoke a little bit about the potential for the Senate to take up a vote to limit the president's power. We'll have to see what happens with that. And of course, we'll bring you updates to that during our later newscast should we learn anything new on that. But of course, make sure you stay up to date here on the WSAZ Plus app, both on your smart TV and on your phone. And remember, you can always get the news on your smartphone by downloading the WSAZ app. It's free for both Apple and Android. Thanks so much for joining us.